In the winter of 1943, in a small Eastern European town surrounded by frozen fields and silent forests, a young woman made a decision that would quietly change the fate of hundreds of people. She carried no weapon and commanded no soldiers. Yet before the war ended, 321 people would still be alive because of the choices she made. Her name was Anna Weiss, a 23-year-old nurse who worked in the modest hospital of a provincial town called WWII, a place that, before the war, had been known mostly for its quiet market square, its narrow streets, and the bell tower of the old church that could be seen from nearly every field beyond the town. Anna had grown up there, the daughter of a schoolteacher who believed deeply in education and discipline. But when the occupation began during the first week of the war, he disappeared without explanation, leaving behind no letter, no record, and no grave, only a silence that followed Anna through the years that came after. When the German convoy arrived in Novi Breg one gray winter morning, the town seemed to stop breathing. The trucks rolled through the fog before sunrise, engines echoing through empty streets as soldiers stepped down onto the cobblestones with practiced precision. And within a few hours, the walls of the town were covered with official notices that announced the beginning of a new order. Residents were required to register with the occupation authorities, strict curfews were imposed, labor quotas were established, and a new system of transport lists was introduced, a bureaucratic structure that appeared ordinary on paper but was understood by everyone in town to mean something far more dangerous. Names would be written, addresses would be confirmed, and families would be scheduled for relocation, yet the people whose names appeared on those lists rarely returned once the trucks carried them away. The hospital felt the consequences of the occupation almost immediately, because the wounded always arrive first in times of violence. And within days, the corridors were filled with civilians who carried injuries that were never officially explained. Men were brought in under guard with bruises and broken ribs after interrogations, and soldiers waited by the doors as nurses worked quietly under the pressure of watching eyes. Anna spent long hours in the treatment room cleaning wounds, stitching torn skin, and offering water to exhausted prisoners. And while her hands remained steady, she began to notice the patterns forming around her. She counted the number of prisoners brought into the hospital, the number of trucks leaving the square at night, and the number that returned empty by morning. And slowly, the numbers began to form a picture that words alone could not describe. Several weeks into the occupation, a new district officer named Karl Richter was assigned to oversee the administration of the region. Richter did not resemble the brutal caricatures many people imagined when they thought of occupying officers, because his authority came not from shouting or visible cruelty, but from discipline and methodical control. His office was quiet, his paperwork exact, and he believed deeply in systems that ran with mathematical precision, where every document was checked and every record was filed correctly. It was this precision that eventually brought Anna to his attention, because she spoke German fluently. She typed quickly, and she worked with a calm focus that made her stand out among employees who were increasingly frightened by the changing conditions of the town. One afternoon, she was summoned to the administrative building that now served as the headquarters of the occupation authority, and the offer she received that day would place her closer to the center of the system than she had ever imagined. Anna was asked to work inside the headquarters as a translator and administrative assistant, a position that gave her direct access to transport schedules, registration documents, and the deportation lists that determined which families would be taken away. When she walked through the heavy doors of the building for the first time, several townspeople watched from across the square, and the expressions on their faces reflected the confusion and suspicion that the war had created. Some believed she had chosen survival over loyalty. Others believed she had been forced into cooperation. But Anna understood something that few people outside the headquarters could yet see. Inside the building, she discovered exactly how the deportation system functioned, and the discovery changed everything. Every Thursday morning, new documents arrived from regional authorities containing lists of names organized into tidy columns, with birth dates, addresses, and occupations carefully recorded beside each entry. Families appeared together on the pages like inventory. And once the paperwork was processed, soldiers followed the instructions with mechanical efficiency. Arrests took place at night, trucks departed before dawn, and by the time the town woke in the morning, the people whose names had appeared on the lists were already gone. At first, Anna simply carried out the work assigned to her, typing documents and translating reports while the system continued to operate around her. Yet she recognized many of the names that appeared on the pages. They were neighbors, shopkeepers, teachers, and families who had lived in the town for generations. And as she sorted the papers, she realized that the entire machine depended on one fragile element: accuracy. Every step in the process relied on documents being correct, and if a document contained an error, it had to be checked again. Verification meant delays, and delays created time, and sometimes time meant the difference between capture and escape. Anna began carefully making changes so small they could easily pass as ordinary clerical mistakes. A street number would be altered by a single digit. A birth date might be written incorrectly, or a file might be placed in the wrong folder among hundreds of nearly identical records. None of these changes appeared dramatic, yet when soldiers arrived at the wrong address, the family they had been searching for had already disappeared. At night, when most of the building had gone dark and only the light of a single lamp illuminated her desk, Anna rewrote names from memory onto small slips of paper. She folded the notes carefully and hid them inside medical supply parcels that were delivered through the town, and the local pharmacist, an older man who had lived in Novi Brzeg for decades, became the quiet link between Anna and the resistance network that was slowly forming in secret. Whenever the pharmacist discovered one of those hidden notes, he understood its meaning immediately. It was a warning, a signal that certain families had only a few hours to leave before soldiers arrived at their door. At first, only a few people managed to escape before the scheduled arrests, and the authorities assumed the errors were the result of confusion. But the same thing happened again and again. A baker and his wife vanished from their apartment the night before soldiers arrived. An elderly couple disappeared from a narrow street near the river. Soon, entire households were slipping quietly out of the town under cover of darkness, carrying only what they could fit into small bags as they moved toward the forests beyond the fields. The pattern eventually began to trouble the district office, and Richter ordered internal reviews to discover what was happening. 2 clerks were dismissed for incompetence, security procedures were tightened, and the cabinets containing the transport lists were locked more carefully than before. Yet the mistakes continued, because Anna understood something essential about the nature of large bureaucratic systems. They rarely suspect small human errors, especially when those errors appear random. She made sure every correction looked accidental, and she never repeated the same pattern twice. As winter deepened, snow began to cover the streets of Novi Brzeg, and the nights grew longer and colder. The headquarters building remained lit far past midnight, as Richter worked through stacks of documents attempting to restore order to the records, comparing lists and reconstructing timelines in an effort to identify the source of the problem. Slowly, a single number emerged from the chaos of the paperwork. A number that represented the growing gap between the official records and reality. 321 people were no longer where the document said they should be. For Richter, that number represented a failure in the system he had been assigned to control. But for Anna, it meant something very different. It meant that 321 people were still alive. The discovery came late one evening when Anna was called into the office after sunset. The building was quiet, and only one lamp illuminated the desk where a transport document lay waiting. The correction on the page matched her handwriting perfectly, and for a long moment, neither of them moved as the wind pressed softly against the windows. Richter understood then that the careful system he trusted had been quietly reshaped from within, not through chaos, but through patience and intelligence. The discipline he valued had been turned against him. Instead of ordering her immediate arrest, he hesitated and that brief hesitation changed the final hours of the story. Anna was allowed to leave the office for a short time, and in that narrow window she wrote one final message. The list contained 47 names, 47 people whose arrests were scheduled for the following morning. The pharmacist received the message quickly, and the resistance network moved with urgency. Families packed their belongings, children were wrapped in blankets, and under the cover of falling snow they slipped quietly out of the town and into the surrounding countryside. From an upstairs window in the headquarters building, Anna watched the shadows move through the dark streets until they disappeared into the distance. A short time later, the corridor filled with the sound of boots, and she knew the moment had arrived. She did not run, because the work had already been completed. The arrest was quiet, and the execution was scheduled for the following morning in the town square, a public demonstration meant to restore fear and order. Snow drifted slowly across the cobblestones as the townspeople were forced to gather and watch. The church bell remained silent, and Anna stood near the fountain where she had once played as a child, her hands bound but her posture straight. Moments later, the rifles were raised and smoke rose into the cold winter air. After the war ended, the archives of the district administration were opened, and historians compared transport records with survivor testimonies from across the region. The numbers were confirmed carefully through documents and personal accounts, and the total became part of the historical record. 321 people had escaped deportation during those months in WWII. Many of them never learned exactly how they had been warned, but the files eventually revealed the truth through the small details left behind on the pages, the altered digits, the misplaced folders, the delayed signatures that had bought just enough time for families to disappear into the night. Today, the town of WWII still stands. The hospital continues to treat patients. The market square has been rebuilt. And near the entrance of the church, there is a small plaque that bears the name of the woman whose quiet actions changed so many lives. It simply reads, Anna Weiss. And for the families of 321 people, that name is the reason their stories did not end in the winter of 1943.